Imagine a calm morning in California, where the Pacific mist still clings to the manicured hedges of Montecito. Inside a $14 million fortress, the coffee is brewing, and the world seems quiet. But then, the silence isn't just broken, it's shattered. Meghan Markle's phone begins to light up, a relentless strobe of notifications that won't stop. Call after call, message after message, each one more urgent than the last. The piece she traded a kingdom for has just vanished in the span of a few headlines. Tom Bower has returned, and this time he isn't just knocking on the door, he's tearing the walls down. What is revealed has sent the Sussex camp into a total tailspin, leaving the team scrambling and Meghan reportedly retreating behind closed doors. This isn't just another tabloid story. This is the moment the narrative they've spent years crafting finally starts to bleed. The man behind this chaos isn't some random blogger looking for a quick click. Tom Bower is a name that carries a specific kind of weight in the world of investigative journalism. He's the guy who goes where others are too afraid to tread, taking on billionaires, tech giants, and the most powerful public figures on the planet. He doesn't just write biographies, he performs autopsies on public images. When Bower decides to look into your past, he doesn't just skim the surface. He digs into the soil, unearthing roots people thought were buried forever. His previous work, Revenge, sent shockwaves through the palace. But that was just the beginning. The latest intel suggests he's found something even more explosive, something that touches on the one thing Meghan Markle values most, her control. But why is this hitting so hard now? Because Hollywood, for all its glitz, is a place built on the hustle. For years, the story we've been told is one of a rising star who found her prince, a modern-day fairy tale with a gritty, realistic edge. But Bower is digging into the gritty part of that story, and what he's finding doesn't look like a fairy tale at all. He's looking at the early years, the years of auditions, waiting, and the calculated moves required to break into an industry that eats most people alive. It takes a certain kind of iron will to make it in Hollywood, a level of focus that doesn't always leave room for old friends or past connections. And that's where the whispers are starting to get loud. There's talk of doors opening in ways no one can quite explain, and sudden opportunities appearing just as the right hands were shaken. The story being whispered in the corridors of power now sounds nothing like the one we've seen in glossy documentaries. It's a story of a ladder being climbed, and, more importantly, a story of the people who were left standing on the ground as that ladder was pulled up. Sources, people who were once part of the inner circle, are starting to paint a picture of a woman who was laser-focused on the finish line. When success finally came knocking, some people found themselves on the outside looking in. Former friends, longtime colleagues, and even family members suddenly found their numbers blocked or their invites rescinded. It wasn't just a change in lifestyle, it was a total rebranding of a human being. And that rebranding went into overdrive the moment Prince Harry entered the frame. Meeting a prince changes everything, obviously, but for Meghan, it reportedly meant a complete rewrite of her own history. According to the latest findings, it wasn't just about moving into a palace. It was about ensuring her past fit the palace mold. Small details were polished. Certain associations were quietly erased. And a new, flawless brand was born, the modern royal icon. But here's the problem. With a brand built on perfection, any tiny crack becomes a massive issue. Tom Bower claims to have found those cracks, suggesting that the authentic journey we've been sold was actually a carefully choreographed performance. When the news hit that Bower had managed to uncover deep-level details, the reaction in Montecito was reportedly one of pure, unadulterated panic. This wasn't the usual recycled gossip from the British tabloids. These were details that only someone in the room could have known. For someone like Meghan, who is known for managing every single inch of her public image, this is the ultimate nightmare. She wants to be the one steering the ship, deciding which stories get told and how they're framed. But with Bower's new information, she's lost the wheel. Her team has allegedly been working overtime, trying to trace the leaks, trying to figure out which trusted friend decided that the truth was worth more than their loyalty. Imagine that feeling for a second. You've spent years building a fortress around your life, making sure every interview and every photo fits the narrative you've chosen. Then you realize the call is coming from inside the house. The paranoia that comes with that is suffocating. Who do you trust when the secrets you thought were safe start appearing on the front page? The Montecito mansion, once a symbol of their freedom and escape from toxic royal life, has reportedly turned into a high-stress war room. Staff are walking on eggshells. The air is thick with tension. And the crisis managers are on permanent retainer. They're looking for a fix, a way to spin this back in their favor. But when the information is this detailed, you can't just PR it away. But the real sting isn't just in the Hollywood secrets. It's the family drama that's being dragged back into the light. For years, the world has seen the fallout between Meghan and her father, Thomas Markle, through a very specific lens. We saw the staged photos, the betrayal, and the painful decision to cut ties. It made people feel for her. It gave her a platform of empathy. But Tom Bower is suggesting that there's a whole other side to that story, one that isn't so black and white. He's digging into the framing of that family war, asking if the innocent victim narrative was actually another piece of the brand strategy. If it turns out that the tension wasn't one-sided, the public sympathy could evaporate in an instant. And then there's the timing. This couldn't be happening at a worse moment for the Sussexes. Their California dream, the one they promised would be a new era of global influence and massive deals, is starting to look a little shaky. The hyped-up Netflix deal hit rough waters. The Spotify partnership ended with a whimper. And the new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, hasn't exactly set the world on fire. Public interest is cooling. People are starting to ask, what's next? And if the answer is just more drama and more books about their past, the victimhood narrative starts to feel like a broken record. Prince Harry, meanwhile, is reportedly caught in an impossible position. He left his home, his family, and his country to protect his wife and find peace. But instead of peace, he's found himself in the center of an even bigger storm. One where he doesn't have the protection of the palace's massive PR machine. He's seen how fast a reputation can be dismantled. He knows that once the public starts doubting the core of your story, it's almost impossible to win them back. Every interview they give now is being compared to Bower's findings. Every statement is being fact-checked by an army of critics who are tired of the their truth versus the truth debate. The British press is, as you'd expect, going all in. They've been waiting for a moment like this, a moment where they have real, documented information to challenge the Sussexes' version of events. Headlines aren't just speculating anymore. They're citing sources and timelines that don't match up. The pressure is coming from all sides, and the cracks in that carefully built image are starting to show. Once you lose the trust of your supporters, the game is over. Even the people who defended her for years are starting to go quiet, waiting to see if there's a response that actually makes sense. So, where does this leave them? Is this just another hurdle for a couple that has survived everything the world threw at them? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end for the Montecito brand? When your entire identity is built on being authentic and truthful, a book like Bower's isn't just a distraction, it's a foundation shaker. If the version of the past they've shared with the world turns out to be a carefully crafted script, the fallout will be more than just bad press. It will be the end of their credibility. The silence in Montecito isn't just a sign of privacy anymore. It's starting to feel like the heavy, pressurized air that precedes a total collapse. For years, the narrative from the Sussex camp was one of liberation and upward mobility. A best is yet to come mantra they repeated in every glossy interview and high-budget documentary. But as we move further into 2026, the cracks aren't just visible, they're canyon-sized. The most recent blow didn't come from a tabloid or a random social media troll. It came from the very industry Meghan worked so hard to dominate. The news that she has officially severed ties with Netflix for her lifestyle brand, as ever, has sent a clear message to the world. The Midas touch they promised when they left the UK has officially run out. 4 months, the brand, originally launched with much fanfare as American Riviera Orchard, before a quiet, desperate-sounding rebrand to As Ever, was supposed to be Meghan's ultimate power move. It was her answer to Martha Stewart and Gwyneth Paltrow, a high-end gateway into the homes of millions. But the reality behind the scenes was far from a domestic dream. Sources within the industry are whispering that the split with Netflix wasn't the mutual decision the PR statements claimed. Instead, it was born out of deep-seated frustration. Meghan reportedly felt the streaming giant was being too cautious with her range of jams, wines, and home goods. But from Netflix's perspective, the numbers just weren't there. When you're paying millions for content, you expect a return on investment, not a struggle over the marketing of fruit preserves. The failure of the Netflix-branded lifestyle push is just one symptom of a much larger issue. Across the halls of their Montecito mansion, the atmosphere is described as professional chaos. To understand the depth of the trouble, you only have to look at the revolving door of staff. In late 2025 and the first few months of 2026, the departures have become a flood. When your 11th publicist, Meredith Maines, walks away after disastrous photo drama involving the Kardashian family, people start to wonder if the problem isn't the staff, but the bosses. The resignation of James Holt, the longtime head of their Archewell charity, was the final straw for many observers. Holt didn't just leave, he moved back to London, essentially signaling that the American experiment he helped build was effectively shuttered. When the captain and the first mate both abandon ship, you have to ask, how much longer can the vessel stay afloat? This internal collapse is happening while the couple tries desperately to maintain their global statesman image. Take their recent trip to Jordan, for example. Framed as a high-level humanitarian mission, it was meant to show the world that Prince Harry and Meghan didn't need the British monarchy to act like royalty. But instead of the Meghan magic they were hoping to recapture, the trip was labelled a quasi-royal disaster. Rumours of snubs from the Jordanian royal family began circulating before the couple even landed back in California. Critics pointed out the blurred narrative of the tour. On one hand, they were trying to be humble philanthropists, and on the other, they were traveling with a Hollywood-level security detail and a wardrobe that cost more than some of the aid they were highlighting. It was a visual contradiction that the public is increasingly tired of seeing. The disconnect between their public persona and their private reality is exactly what Tom Bauer has tapped into for his latest investigative deep dive. His new book, which hit shelves in early 2026, has been described as a forensic dismantling of the Sussex brand. But it's the fallout from the book that is causing the most damage inside the Montecito fortress. Meghan is reportedly obsessed with finding the mole within her circle. She knows that the level of detail Bauer has, access to conversations from behind closed doors, specific financial pressures, and internal staff complaints, could only have come from someone she once trusted. The paranoia is said to be so intense that old friends who haven't spoken to the media are being frozen out simply because they might be the ones who flipped. It's a classic case of a fortress becoming a prison, where the only people left are the ones on the payroll. And then there's the financial reality. A $14 million mansion doesn't pay for itself, especially when the massive contracts that once seemed endless are drying up. The Spotify deal is a distant memory. The Netflix partnership is on life support, with only a few struggling projects left in development hell. And the lifestyle brand is now a solo venture in a crowded market. Experts are calling this their financial cliff. For years, they lived a billionaire lifestyle on a millionaire's budget, banking on the idea that their fame would always be a currency. But in 2026, Sussex fatigue has set in. The public has seen the documentaries, read the books, and heard the grievances. The appetite for their specific brand of truth has reached a saturation point, leaving them with a high-maintenance life and a dwindling income. While Prince Harry and Meghan struggle with their declining brand, the world around them has changed. The British royal family. Despite its own massive scandals, including the shocking 2026 arrest of Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, the royal institution has managed to maintain a level of stability that the Sussexes simply haven't achieved. In times of crisis, the public often rallies around the institution, not the individuals who left it behind. The contrast is stark. The palace is dealing with its issues with silent, institutional stoicism, while Montecito is responding with frantic PR pivots and reshared affectionate dance clips on Instagram. This attempt to recapture their 2016 magic by showing intimate family moments is being seen by many as a transparent move to distract from their professional failures. The most telling sign of the times might be the way Prince Harry is being viewed. Once the world's most popular royal, he is now frequently described as Papa Sussex, a nickname Meghan recently shared in an International Women's Day post. While meant to be endearing, critics have pointed out that it anchors his entire identity to a title granted by an institution he claims to despise. It's a paradox they can't seem to escape. They want the freedom of private citizens, but the status of global icons. They want to be authentic, but they manage their image with the precision of a corporate merger. As 2026 unfolds, the realization is setting in: you can't have both. The final crack in the image might not be a single event, but the slow accumulation of these inconsistencies. When you tell the world you want privacy but then film your every move, people notice. When you talk about saving the planet but travel exclusively by private jet, people notice. And when you build a brand on being the victims of a toxic system, but then struggle to keep your own staff from quitting, the world doesn't just notice, it stops caring. The Montecito dream was built on the idea that Prince Harry and Meghan were the stars of a story the world couldn't stop watching. But every story eventually reaches its finale. As the legal battles pile up, the business deals fall through, and the inner circle shrinks, the question isn't whether the brand will survive, but what will be left of the people behind it once the cameras finally turn off. Maybe that's the ultimate lesson of the Sussex saga. Fame is a tool, but trust is the foundation. And once that foundation starts to crumble, no amount of rebranding, name changes, or glossy Instagram posts can hold up the house. The world is moving on, to new stories, new heroes, and even new scandals. In the fast-paced cycle of 2026, staying relevant requires more than just a famous name. It requires a reason for people to keep watching. And right now, the only reason people are still tuning in to the Montecito story is to see how the ending plays out. Is this a comeback in the making? Or are we witnessing the slow public fading of a couple who thought they were bigger than the crown? Only time will tell, but the clock is ticking louder than ever.